Hi everybody, welcome to my studio, also my garage. I hope you guys have gotten off to a good start on your projects, and I'm making this video so that I can show you how to start just cutting wood and laminating wood. And in the next video, hopefully later this week, I'll show you how to do more of the shaping, and once that's done, we'll kind of go from there. So if you have problems or questions with your project, please contact me right away, and we can do a Zoom. We can meet on Hangouts or whatever. Or if you have questions, don't wait. And then also remember that if you have technical questions, especially in the beginning, feel free to drop by Brady's office hours, open lab, and he can help you out. So he's really good at it. He's a valuable resource, and I want you guys to take advantage. And I want to use the my wood has a knot in it, and so I want to use this for my this end for my bench pin. That way I'm not using this in my piece. So I'll make my bench pin, from this much wood, and the clear sort of more even grained wood, I'll use that for my actual piece. Alright, so I'm going to mark this. This is fairly, there's no set size for a bench pin, but I think if we set the center circle in 5 inches, and in the center of this to start with, and then we'll make the legs afterwards. So we want to measure 5 inches. So this is it's also 5 inches wide. I have it cut 5 inches wide. So we know that the center of that is 2.5 inches. So that'll be my center point. And I'm just going to go in so that the legs at the very end are 1 inch. And I found this washer that has approximately a 1/2 inch hole. So I'm going to use that. And it doesn't have to be exactly a 1/2 inch hole. If it's a little bigger, like 3/4, that's fine, or a little smaller, that's also fine. And we have our 1 inch marks here and here. So what we'll do is right about the center of the hole, we will draw a straight line. And on the other side. So this is, we will cut out all this and we'll leave a shape that's like this. And what this is for is to clamp to your table, and when you're cutting wood you can set it right on here and use the coping saw to cut the wood, and the bench pin will support your wood as you cut. So you can move the wood around, and you don't have to clamp the wood to the table, and you're able to get into more interior spaces when you're cutting with a bench pin. So I'll show you how that works. So in your supplies list, you were supposed to pick up a hand screw clamp, and that's what this is. So the way these work is that you turn them and the jaws get bigger. If you turn it the other way, the jaws get smaller, and it's more ideal if you can get them parallel when you're clamping stuff. If it gets too far like this, then it'll sort of slip off, right? And if you get them too far in like this, then the clamp sort of becomes unstable, right? So if you can get it parallel like this, that'll make it more secure. So I'm gonna get it. It's close enough. Okay. I noticed that the lines are hard to see on camera, so I'm going to use a Sharpie. I wouldn't suggest you use a Sharpie on your work, just because the wood grain sort of absorbs the ink and it's hard to get out. But for demonstration purposes, I want to I'll use this so you can see. Okay. Let's see if that's better. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay. So to start with, let me show you how to put the blade on your coping saw. So I'll do another little video that's up close, but my camera can't do that. So the way you start is you want to have the teeth pointing downward, so it almost looks like the one edge of a Christmas tree. And the way to do that is to put it in on one side, and you can take this, rest it on the edge of the table, and then when you push, you can kind of push the handle with your hip and just gently hook the other side in, and then it's ready to go. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is pick out your wood. I'm going to show you how to make a little bench pin and that you can clamp to your table, and we'll do that by clamping this down. We'll draw in the bench pin, and then I'll just show you how to use the coping saw correctly. Okay. So this is important. When you use a coping saw, the mistake that people make is they will start in and they'll have the blade at an angle. And for straight cuts, it's okay to have it at an angle, but when you start to make curve cuts, that angle will cause the blade to get sideways and snap, and you don't want to put too much torque on the blade. So when you start to cut, once you've cut in a little bit, you want to make sure the blade is completely perpendicular, straight up and down. And so you can kind of think of yourself as like a sewing machine, and that's a needle, and it's just going straight up and down. Okay, I've reached the circle, and this is where you want to make sure that you're perpendicular, right? You can see if you bend it, it's going to be hard to make angles. So Okay, so that's it. It's complete and took me about 5 minutes to do the whole thing. So if I wanted to cut this shape out of the center of the wood without cutting in through the side, the way I would do that is I would drill a hole and then unhook one end of the coping saw and put the blade through, reconnect the blade, and then use the bench pin as a support. And you can see the advantage of having a bench pin, because once I start sawing, I can move the material around instead of having to clamp it to a table and then and then reclamping it every time I got close to the table. So it's a real advantage, and so let's do it now. So I'm going to just drill a hole and so I'll unhook this. So it's unhooked. I'll put it through on one side, and you can also just let it hang while you put it up against the table, and then use your hip, and then you're ready to cut. So then I'll use the cut. So the little hole there is, in case it's a little support, but you don't have to use the hole. You can sort of like use just the in between the V that the bench pin makes. Okay, so let's start. Remember, when you're cutting, you usually want to cut away from you, right? So the teeth are always away from you, and you don't want to get your fingers in there too close either. So I'm just using my hand just to like hold the wood down, and the direction the teeth are in sort of pull against the support, against the bench pin. So I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. Okay, so it's complete, and it cut out pretty good. There's a little rough edge where I started, and that's where we'll go back with a file and smooth this out. So then when you want to get the blade out, you just use your hip, pull the blade out, and then put the blade back in, and you're all set. Properly laminate wood, glue wood together. You can use wood glue, and you can also get away with Elmer's glue. The first thing you want to do when you glue wood together is to make sure that the surfaces are clean. And so in this case, there's just dust from the table and just from the shop, and so I'm just going to clean them off. One thing you can also do, if the wood has a surface and it's really smooth, it might not absorb the adhesive as well. So what you can do is give it a tooth, and what that means is you get sandpaper and you just rough up the surface. That's a really good idea if you're gluing plastic to other plastic things. And you wouldn't use wood glue, but you might use epoxy. If it has a smooth finish, really on whatever material, you want to get sandpaper and rough it up. This is rough enough, and it'll absorb the wood glue, so we don't have to worry about that. But we should make sure that it's clean, and that way no dirt messes up the joint. Okay, so when you use wood glue, every surface that's gonna touch with another surface needs to be completely covered, right? So wood glue is non-toxic, so you can use your finger. I think a lot of people just use like a chip brush, you know, like a cheap paintbrush, but you can use your finger and it comes off. It's not. You wouldn't do this with epoxy, for sure. You wouldn't do this with Gorilla Glue either, right? Wood glue, Elmer's glue, anything that's a PVA, polyvinyl acetate, you can use your finger. Okay. So it seems like kind of overkill because there's going to be a lot of glue that sort of squishes out the edges, but it's better than leaving a little area which could start a crack. So you know, make sure you have like complete coverage, and then when you do, you put them together, and you know, you're going to use your clamp, and you can see that it's starting to like sort of mush out. Now you know you've done it right if the glue comes out of every little edge, every corner. Okay, so then you know, you get your clamp, and again the jaws of the clamp are going to be parallel, right, with each other. And in this case I can use just one clamp, but if you have longer wood, you know, you'll need more clamps. And so get it sort of centered, and you know, make sure it's as even as it needs to be, and then just you squeeze it, and don't worry about squeezing it too tight. You can't get it too tight, and that should do. I did kind of miss a spot, so let's move that. There we go. Okay, so the glue's coming out all around. Now, when the glue is like this, this is the best time to clean it up, right? So you want to get your rag, if you have one. You shop like a paper towel. It's the best. And if you dampen it, you know, get a little water on the towel, it cleans up a lot easier. Okay, so let me get some water. Okay, so this is a shop towel, and I sprayed down with water, so I'll get the glue off a little better. If any glue gets down onto the clamp, it's really important to get as much off as you can so it doesn't, your project doesn't stick to your clamp, which is does happen. Okay.